Hey everybody, welcome to my Ultimate Redguard Guide. In this guide, I'm going to show you everything you need to know to take your game to the next level and to dominate Jaws of the Lion scenarios. This is the hardest guide I've ever done, no word of a lie, and it's because of one card, and that card is Shield Spikes. And I spent hour after hour after hour testing things out, playing, reviewing all the cards, thinking really hard. I should probably put a light bulb above my head here or something. It was the hardest guide ever, and I'm going to dive deep into how Shield Spikes works, whether you can use it, what levels you should use it at, etc. So make sure you stick with me. I think it's going to be really interesting for you Redguard players. And also, spoiler-wise, I'm going to make sure that before I get to level 5 cards and above, that I put a nice big spoiler transition. So for you Jaws of the Lion players that haven't made it to those spoiler cards, no need to worry. You can just stop the video at level 4. And also one more thing, this guide is going to be focused on playing the Redguard in Jaws of the Lion. The difference between playing the Redguard in Jaws of the Lion versus Gloomhaven is quite larger I think than even the other classes in Jaws of the Lion. So for this video's purposes, it's going to be about playing in Jaws of the Lion. Okay, let's go to starting cards. Shield of the Desert. At least that's what my notes say. I spelled desert wrong, even though I know how to spell it and didn't notice because, it doesn't flag. Desert's a real word. Thought that was funny. Thought I'd share that with you. So Shield of the Desert, top, very good. Make sure you have fire up though. If you can hit a couple of enemies, and if you have light as well, and you can add +1, that's a repeatable attack 8 to 2 enemies, and you can potentially push into a trap, and you get 1 XP. Very good level 1 card. Initiative at 10 is great as well. And then the Shield 3, this loss on the bottom, very powerful if you decide to play a Shield Spikes build. And don't forget, we're going to talk about that in excruciating detail later in the video. But if you do pair this with a top Shield 1, you're going to have Shield 4. You're going to be able to dish out some pretty good damage with Shield Spikes, or you're just going to be able to use it to be super tanky, in a later room when the situation arises. Very good card. Don't leave home without it. Flame Shroud. The top is pretty good. However, you can almost never use it. Let me explain why. The Redguard struggles with movement, especially at early levels. This is our best move card. And so despite Flame Shroud top actually being a pretty decent card because you can't waste the charges, you can basically never use the top unless you're in the very last room and you don't need move anymore, because this move 4 utility wise is going to be essential for us. And then if you are playing Shield Spikes, having consuming fire and using the bottom to move forward and give yourself that shield, very good. Always take this card, but pretty much always take it for the move. Swift Strength. Top of this card, pretty solid, good utility, attack 2, range 2, target 2, pull 1. You're rarely going to be able to pull them into a trap, but if you're trying to get enemies adjacent to you, it can be reasonably handy. And if you're fighting monsters that don't have shield, 4 damage at level 1 is pretty good. Initiative at 16, also good, although it's actually only our 5th fastest card even at level 1. Redguard's initiative is very good, and I mean the class really needs that good initiative to excel, so I understand why. It's kind of funny that 16 is the 5th best card initiative wise. The bottom move 2 jump, it's okay. Move 2 with jump, they basically got to be right next to you for you to jump over somebody. Make sure you pair this with boots, and then it's got a lot more functionality. And the Shield 1 is just a nice bonus. Overall, very good card. Very useful, nice solid utility. Desert Knight. Top, attack 2, disarm, target 1 enemy within 2 hexes. Nice control. Really good for getting in there and taking care of that big elite. You're going to need to pair it with something fast though, so you make sure and go first before the monster, because it does have initiative 90. It also produces ice and dark, and it's clearly meant to be played before Burn Away the Dark, And then next turn you play Burn Away the Dark, and you convert that ice and dark into something useful for yourself, fire and light. Really nice little combo there. And then the bottom of this card, I love this. It's a situationally powerful ability for a loss. So you play this card for the top through most of the scenario, and then at the end, you play this bottom move 6 jump to, go snag some treasure before your friends, or catch up to your friends if you've been left behind. It's going to be something that's going to be quite useful to you some of the time, and those are some of the best cards that have a great half that you can reuse all the time, and then something that's a loss that's situationally very powerful. Blinding Sickle. Top is solid, attack 3 is fine at level 1. It's range 2, okay, that's a lot of Redguard stuff, range 2. And then Immobilize, really, really good. Immobilize is almost as good as a stun or a disarm on a melee enemy, especially when you've got range, makes it a lot easier to use. So Immobilize those melee enemies and then produce some light for yourself. Late initiative, so you're probably going to want to pair it with something fast for the most part. Usually you want to immobilize early before they can get to you. I mean, depends on the situation. But the great thing about this card is at 87, you can go late or pair it with something fast, and 87 is quite late. You're almost always going to go last in that situation. And then the bottom, all adjacent enemies suffer 1 damage. Can be useful. Looting is also nice, and we do produce light. Overall, a good solid card. Warrior of the Sun. And the top of this is useful in a couple different ways. First way I like to use it, you go late in one turn, you move into position, you get adjacent to a bunch of enemies. The next turn, you go fast, you immobilize everyone, you move out of the way, thereby controlling melee enemies, preventing them from attacking the majority of the time. And then you also get to produce some light. That's pretty nice. The second way you can play this is you can pair it with shield spikes, of course, right? You play a bottom shield and you play a top shield to get yourself 2 shield. And then what this does is if you move in and you shield 1 and immobilize, get some of those ranged enemies with an immobilize. That way they can't step back to avoid disadvantage. They're going to be attacking you with disadvantage, which is going to help push the damage down. And they're also going to take damage from shield spikes if you've got it up, because they can't move away to avoid it. So useful in a couple different ways. Initiative 13, pretty good. The bottom attack 2, +1 attack and muddle if you consume light. Also situationally quite useful. So overall, very good card. I like to use it more for control than I do for the shield spikes thing. And again, we'll talk a lot about shield spikes coming up. Precision Strike. The top can be decent burst damage, and doing 7 attack, and then if you consume fire, having advantage at level 1 is, let's call it mid or maybe slightly higher. It's pretty conditional. You got to have a negative condition and you have to consume fire. So even though the potential damage is a little bit higher than average, it's a bit of a pain. Initiative at 40. Wah, wah. I could have put my own sound effect in there, I guess, though, doing it myself. But anyways, you get the point. 40 initiative sucks. Move 2, pull 2, range 3. Decent utility. That you can definitely get some things done with this. Move up and pull an enemy into a trap, or, reposition, that sort of stuff. That being said, this is a card I probably don't take that often. I usually leave it, kind of in the sideboard. Twirling Stabs. Top is a decent AoE attack. Make sure you add light. Attack 3 on all adjacent enemies is, if you hit 3, that's worth 9 damage repeatable. That's pretty good. Initiative 38, not good. We just had an Initiative 40 card. It's also not good. Neither of those are good. The bottom attack 2, consume fire to wound. That's nice. Wounding on a bottom attack is quite nice. Overall, very good card. Blade Dance. I think Blade Dance is one of the most consistently undervalued cards of the Red Guard. It can be very useful. It's our only top move at this point. I'm trying so hard not to spoil things. I'm not going to do it. Okay, let's move on. It's our only top move at this point. And this allows us a lot of flexibility. So let's take one example, Strangling Chains. We can move in and immobilize all adjacent enemies with the bottom of Strangling Chains. Then we get to attack with Blade Dance. Hopefully we can attack somebody at range so we're not at disadvantage. Then we get to move away. You can neutralize a bunch of melee enemies like this. It requires no setup. You don't have to, get in position the turn before and then pull it off the next turn. All in one turn, you get to move, immobilize, do damage at range, and you can consume light or fire to buff up the attack to get up to, 4 to 6 damage sometimes with your modifier deck. It's a very good card. It's very useful. I think people look at it and they're kind of like, whatever, but it's actually quite good. And then the bottom, the move 4 jump, and then all enemies move through suffer 1 damage, or you can consume light for 2 damage. This is probably going to get played in the last room if you've got enough cards. It can, output, you throw some boots on there, get a little bit more move. Maybe one of your friends helps you move or something like that. You can get up, say around 8-10 damage sometimes. And it's going to help you move and jump, and it's good. It can be very useful later in scenarios. This is a good card. I think I've said enough now. I want to explain how undervalued it is. I think it's undervalued. It's kind of like a Tinkerer complex, let's call it. I feel like things are undervalued, so I want to talk about them more. Healing Sands. Top is great if we're taking some damage. Heal 4 at level 1 self plus an XP for it is pretty darn good. 32 initiative, not great, not the worst. Move 3 on the bottom though, and then all attacks targeting you gain disadvantage this round. This is very useful for, when you're in there. It's going to push your damage. It's almost equivalent to, let's call it Shield 1. When the monsters are attacking with disadvantage. So overall, very useful card. Because the red guard has such a limited movement, especially early on, I am 100% taking this card. Any scenario, period. Flaming Sickle. Pretty similar to our other sickle. We've got attack 3, range 2, pull 1, create fire. Pull is worse than immobilize, but fire is better than light. So I guess they're pretty much the same. Initiative 63, no bueno. The bottom, all adjacent enemies suffer 1 damage. That can be useful as well, and looting too, and also making fire. So good, solid card. I don't always take both sickles. It depends on exactly which cards I'm bringing with me. But it's nice to be able to generate fire. It really is. So you'll probably bring it with you most of the time. Shocking Advance. Attack 3 immobilize with a potential shield 1 and an XP. Very good for the red guard. I like to immobilize and then move out of the way if I've got a melee monster so that melee monster is neutralized for the turn. Very effective tactic. And then initiative 14 is really good because you don't necessarily have to have another card with good initiative. 14's usually going to be good enough to get that immobilize off before the melee monster attacks. And then we've got move 3, create light. Very, very good utility. Red guard needs that move. I'm never leaving home without this card. And not just because of the move 3, but the move 3 can help us when we need to move, and then we use the top when we want to, neutralize a melee enemy. Okay, I could do this. Shield spikes. I spent like 10 hours on you. I can do this. What you haven't seen is that I went outside and ran around the house 10 times to get ready for this. That's actually a lie. But I wanted to. I really wanted to. But I do live in Canada, so it's cold right now. This one is complicated. So let's start with, you can't really get much more than 2 shield. You've got items, but they're only 1 use and they're only for 1 attack. You've got attack modifiers, but you've only got a couple and you've got to take those perks. So generally speaking, you have 2 shield. You play a shield 1 on the bottom, you play a shield 1 on the top. And some of the bottom ones, like Flame Shroud, you're going to need to consume fire, so you've got a plan for that as well. However, at level 1, it's actually reasonably effective because monsters have approximately 2 attack at scenario level 1. So you're not going to get yourself in trouble. What happens is, as you go up higher scenario levels, let's say you're at scenario level 4, very tough to get more than 2 shield, even at much higher levels. I'm trying so hard again here not to spoiler, but even at higher levels, it's pretty hard to get above 2 shield consistently. And so you start getting yourself in trouble because at scenario level 4, monsters attack around 4. And so when you get exactly what you want and you surround yourself with monsters and you're dishing out damage because everyone's attacking you, you're then putting yourself in extreme danger. And so it's actually not that effective in mid scenario levels. However, and I won't spoiler anything with, exact specifics, but later on the build is totally viable. And I won't say anymore on that particular part. The next somewhat of an issue is that it doesn't feel like you're using your immobilizes to their full potential. So let's take Warrior of the Sun. We can immobilize everybody and get out of dodge so that we're effectively neutralizing all the melee enemies. If we just immobilize them and then stay in the pocket, the only benefit we're getting is we're keeping ranged enemies from moving away, which is definitely useful, and it's one of the problems with Retaliate in Gloomhaven. And, the Red Guard cards solve that problem. So it is somewhat useful, but I still think I'd rather immobilize and get away from the melee monsters versus using the immobilize to stay in the pocket and keep ranged monsters there, at least up until very late levels when shield spikes becomes much more viable. Next issue, disarms. It doesn't feel like we're effectively using our disarms because our whole strategy is to move in, shield up, and then get attacked and dish back damage. But if we're disarming monsters, well, they're not attacking us. We're not dishing out damage. Our damage output goes down. So really, we would only use our disarms just to make sure that we're not going to die, which, is a problem. You want to use your disarms proactively to disarm a monster and stop them from attacking, but use it proactively and not just as oh no, I've got too many enemies attacking me. With my shield spike strategy, now I'm going to have to disarm somebody. The next kind of problem is it doesn't really do enough damage until much later levels. And so you're going to kind of be stuck, again, like I said, when you're, mid tier, right? Your scenario level 3 or 4, stuff like that. You're going to have some problems. It's not going to be enough damage as well. Would you rather do 2 damage to each monster that attacked you? Or would you rather play something like Shield of the Desert, consume a couple elements and go do 10, 12, 14 damage, stuff like that. Use a bottom attack and add a few damage there. I think it's just not quite as effective, especially at mid levels, as just running kind of a control / tank once in a while / let's do some damage quickly because the Red Guard has such good initiative. So when is shield spikes good? Well, it's good at very low levels because you're not going to get into a lot of trouble, and outputting 2 damage per monster attack is actually going to be relatively decent. And if you're not putting yourself in trouble by taking too much damage, then you'll just be able to go in and shield up and dish out damage and do pretty well. And then it's also good once you get to level 8 or higher. Very viable at that point. I won't go into exact specifics, but very viable at that point. And it's also extremely viable to run a shield spikes build in original Gloomhaven because the items work differently. Because you've got armor like hide armor, and this is no spoilers, this is a level 1 prosperity item in Gloomhaven, so anyone has access to it as soon as they start. But you've got charges, and so you've got much more shield from items in Gloomhaven. Plus you've got much better party compositions to assist you in getting shield. And so you can become a real monster and get, double-digit retaliate and shields. And yeah, just go off. So in original Gloomhaven, the shield spikes build, it's really, really good. I hope that helped with shield spikes. I cannot tell you how many hours I spent literally on this one card. I have never spent as much time on one card specifically in my entire life, and I hope it helps you. At this point, if you could, and if this video has been helpful to you, please help me out and hit that like button and subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so that when I publish new content, you're notified. I've also put out another video. It's a stamina guide, and it talks about when you should play lost cards and some of the math behind exhausting in Gloomhaven. I think especially for new players, and maybe even some of you Gloomhaven vets will learn something, but especially for new players, it's a really good resource. I'm going to put a link up here. Go ahead and check it out. And also, it takes a lot of work to make these videos. If you could, please go ahead down in the description. Check out my recommended products. I've got some cool stuff in there for Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, 3D printing, etc. And I think you're going to find it really interesting. So please go ahead and take a look. At level 2, we've got Harvest Sickle and we've got Barbaric Instincts. Harvest Sickle top, attack 4, range 2, create Earth, empower light. Trying to get my terminology right here. Pretty good solid attack, especially at level 2. Initiative, awful. The bottom, though, is a great situational loss so that you can hoover up a ton of loot at the end of a scenario. So very, very good for that. I used it almost every scenario. Maybe a little too much. Ask my friends. I like to loot. I'm a looter. Okay. And then we've got Barbaric Instincts. This is pretty good if you have a shield spikes build, but again, it doesn't push that shield total over 2. You still have 1 shield top most of the time and 1 shield bottom. So I don't know if I can recommend it, but let's just go through it first. So useful, shield 1, pull 1 monster in at range 2, so you can move them adjacent to you. All adjacent enemies suffer 1 damage. It does produce fire though, which is very useful to us. And then the 12 initiative is also good. And then the bottom, move to attack 1 wound, reasonable, just some good utility if you want to move and attack if you've got light up, or if you're already in position you can attack if you don't have the light. I think I'm going Harvest Sickle most of the time though, although Barbaric Instincts is still good. At level 3, we've got Strangling Chain and we've got Warmth of the Sun. So Strangling Chain, attack 3, immobilize, and then all further attacks that round, the target suffers 1 damage, and then it goes up to 2 when you consume fire, is ridiculously powerful. This is going to help you so much against a tough elite or a boss to really dish out damage, and you go nice and early in the round, and then every time somebody attacks that target, it suffers 2 damage. This is really, really powerful. It's attack 3, immobilize. It's just all good. Initiative at 19, also pretty solid. And the bottom, move 4, immobilize, target all adjacent enemies. This is also amazing. If you've got a bunch of melee monsters, you can move in, immobilize them. Like I said before, you can move out with the top of Blade Dance. Overall, this is just an awesome, awesome level 3 card. And Warmth of the Sun is a pretty good card. It's useful, it's a loss, but it can hit quite a few targets. If you can pump it up by empowering light, getting 4 damage and muddling on each target is going to be pretty nice. Initiative, solid at 23. Bottom, heal 4, range 1, and empowering light is also quite useful. I just cannot recommend anything other than Strangling Chains, though 100% of the time, I'm taking Strangling Chains. At level 4, we've got Burn Away the Dark and we've got Radiant Sickle. Burn Away the Dark top, reasonably useful, pretty easy to hit a bunch of enemies with this, and if you consume fire, then you're going to be wounding them as well, so reasonably useful. 31 initiative, not that great. What I like though is the bottom. Moving and disarming in the same action is very, very useful because you can still attack with your top, you can position, and you can disarm. Absolutely love it. And then you can consume ice and dark to make fire and light. This is really going to be helpful for you. And then we've got Radiant Sickle. Top, attack 4, range 2, all adjacent targets suffer 1 damage. This is easily going to be worth 1 to 2 damage extra, and they do suffer it, so that's really nice. 79 initiative, relatively late, so if you do want to go late, it's a decent card for that. And then move 2, heal 2 on the bottom. Good utility there. Always going to be useful to be able to move and heal. I love being able to move and do an effect. It's so useful because you always have to move, and if you have an extra effect on top of that, it's just gravy. It's amazing. I think though that most of the time I'm taking Burn Away the Dark because I like to play the Red Guard as more of a control class in some ways. And so yeah, Burn Away the Dark more often than not. And if you've taken Harvest Sickle, you probably don't need Radiant Sickle as well. You've probably got enough attack. But if you did take Barbaric Instincts at level 2, you can definitely take Radiant Sickle. Alright, we're at level 5. If you've made it here and you don't want to hear any spoilers, I suggest you hit pause very quickly. And go. At level 5, we've got Sand Devil. The Sand Devil is awesome. You cannot believe how much work this card is going to do for you. Play it right away, turn 1 if possible, and then use it to reposition enemies, push them into traps, do a little bit of damage, muddle them so that they do less damage to you. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And move 2, it can keep up with you. And because you get to control it and put it exactly where you need, man, I just cannot tell you how much I love this card. It's got a move 5 on the bottom. Great. I've never used the move 5. And that, I mean literally. I have literally never used the move 5 on this card. I love the top. Play it for the top 100% of the time. Try this one again just to be really clear. At level 6, we have Fierce Brilliance and we've got Flying Sickle. I'm going to talk a lot about the top of Fierce Brilliance here because I think most people are probably not reading this card really closely and understanding the disarm rule. So you're disarming a monster on their turn. When you disarm, like a bunch of other conditions, the condition lasts until the end of next turn. So because you're disarming a monster on their turn, they're disarmed for 2 total turns, this turn and the next turn. And it completely changes the nature of this card. Each time you're going to disarm a monster for 2 turns, and that is going to be really, really good. Because it could potentially have wasted turns if it was only a 1-turn disarm. Let's say a monster moves in and they heal, that would waste a charge. But because it's 2 turns, it completely changes the nature of the game. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, please go ahead, hit that like button. I'm hoping that these little tidbits, these tips, are the reasons you come and watch these videos. And I think, like I said earlier, most people are probably playing this card wrong. And it's actually much better than it appears at first glance. The card also has Initiative 22, and the bottom move 2, all adjacent enemies suffer 2 damage. Quite good in its own right, but I think if you're taking this card, you're probably taking it for the top. And then we've got Flying Sickle. This is attack 5, range 4, pull 3, and create air. Very good card in its own right. You can pull monsters through traps because it's got that good range and pull 3. And then if you do pull them through a trap, 5 damage plus trap damage, going to be very good. And then 91 initiative, nice late initiative to help you when you need to go late. And then the bottom, attack 2, empower light, or consume light, sorry, move 2, and then attack 2. Very good when paired with Strangling Chain, and you consume fire on Strangling Chain. This turns into attack 2, suffer 2, potential move 2 with the light, and then attack 2, suffer 2. So you're going to be able to mow down elites with this card. At this level, and I love this, it's such a good choice, and it's going to depend on how you're playing. Do you want some more control? Do you want to disarm some more? You take Fierce Brilliance. Do you need a little bit more damage output? You take Flying Sickle. Both are amazing in their own way, and it's totally going to depend on what you need at this point in time. At level 7, we have Horns of the Beast, and we have Vicious Ballet. Horns of the Beast top, very good, solid, repeatable attack. I don't know if you always want to push though. I'm neutral on that, but you can skip it if you want. It does produce fire, love that. 8 initiative, very good. Bottom move 2 with a big shield is situationally quite powerful. And with a shield spikes build, it's like kind of a 1-turn, big shield spikes combo. So pretty good for that. And then we've got Vicious Ballet. The top has a lot of upside, but it's pretty tough. I think most of the time, you're two of your allies are not necessarily going to be within melee range. I mean, Hatchet is very often in ranged, like making ranged attacks. Demo's usually in there, so good for the demo. And then Void Warden, most of the time, probably staying back. And so you're rarely, I think, going to have fire and light up and have two allies adjacent in melee position. But if you can, it's a repeatable 9 damage, and then when you add in their attack modifier decks, like especially like Demo and Hatchet have pretty good attack modifier decks, it can be good. 28 initiative, okay, verging on okay. The bottom, though, is really good. Essentially, it's a move 4, suffer 3 damage, and it's got a lot of flexibility because of how it works. You know, suffer, move, suffer, move, suffer. So really, really good card. I like to take Vicious Ballet a little bit more just for that bottom, because when you can move 4 and have some or multiple enemies suffer damage, it can be very, very good, but you really can't go wrong. Horns of the Beast is also very good. So this one, it depends on how you're playing. Level 8. And Shield Spikes becomes viable! Yes!
You call asking where I've been, who I'm gonna see.
Anyone who's been waiting to play Shield Spikes, once you get to this level, you're happy. Because we've got No Fear, and then we've got Prismatic Sickle. So let's talk No Fear. I mean, the top... Anytime you're attacked this round, gain shield X for the attack, where X is the amount of adjacent enemies up to 3. Fantastic. This is what you want. You want to be surrounded, and you want to have a bunch of shield, and you want to just dash out damage and take none yourself. This card is ideal for that. And at Initiative 1, you're going first. I think this is the fastest card of any character in any of the games. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't gone through and, written down every initiative, but I don't remember any other 1 initiative cards. The bottom of this card, it doesn't exist. Absolutely useless. You can waste heals so easy. You're already full and you heal, nothing happens. And it's just too easy to waste. It's not worth it at all. Yes, you see heal 15 and think, oh, heal 15 for 1 card is good. It's not. Trust me. And then we've got Prismatic Sickle. This card has so much utility. It's going to power up all of your other abilities, whether you use the top or bottom. Top, you're going to do 4 damage at range 3 and produce 3 elements of any kind you want. So you're going to help your friends. You're going to help yourself too. Initiative 70 is not quite late enough, but whatever. You play it with another card because this card's so good. And then Loot 2 reusable and create an element. That's really nice. You're actually probably going to get some okay work out of that. And Loot 2 is going to annoy your friends a lot. So if you enjoy that, you can definitely take Prismatic Sickle. So it depends on what you're looking for here. I think a lot of people really want to use Shield Spikes, and if you've waited this long, it's pretty tough to pass up No Fear for that top. At level 9, we've got Honorable Fury, and we've got Soaring Shield. Honorable Fury top is a mid-tier top for a level 9 card. Pretty decent damage. Can add some range if you consume and add some damage and some effects like Muddle, and all adjacent targets suffer 1 damage. This card's probably going to be worth, 7 to 10 damage, let's say, right? So decent, but not amazing. Initiative nice and late, that's going to be helpful. And then the bottom, Empower Light to move 3, and then all adjacent enemies suffer 3 damage. Suffering 3 damage on a move is going to be pretty good. And then we've got Soaring Shield. The top is one of those cards that you're going to use situationally, and this is the card I was trying not to talk about earlier. It does have a top move as well, even though it is a lost card. So, it's not going to be useful to move with a top like Blade Dance is. Anyways, it's move 3, jump, attack 4, target all adjacent enemies, stun, and fire. This is going to win you scenarios in the last room. You're going to go in and stun everybody. You're going to do 4 damage. Just make sure that you wait a turn for the monsters to group up. You don't want to just kick the door down and run in and try and use this, because you're probably not getting more than 2 monsters. You got to let them move and kind of group up, because they're focusing on like the same thing most of the time. Initiative 11, also very good. And then the bottom, move 3, jump, shield 2. This is so good when combined with the top of no fear. Shield 6, you've got shield spikes out. Shield 6, essentially retaliate 6, dish 6 damage out to each adjacent enemy. It's going to be very, very powerful. Really fun to use. And for all of us people that want to use shield spike so badly and haven't been able to use it in the mid levels, this is a great card. I'm pretty much taking Soaring Shield every time. Not every time. Let me just preface that. Some I say 100%. I'm going to say most of the time Soaring Shield, just because it is so good. Even if you don't have a Shield Spikes build, moving, jumping, and shielding 2 to 3 is amazing. I almost didn't do enhancements for this video, but just in case anyone is playing it in original Gloomhaven and watching this video, you can enhance it. Jaws of the Lion players, I'll go through it quickly because you can't enhance if you've only got Jaws of the Lion and you're playing Redguard, in Jaws of the Lion. Just enhance Warrior of the Sun +1 shield and Swift Strength +1 shield, and it's going to make your shield spikes build much more viable. Okay, let's talk perks. And if you've watched my other videos, I almost always recommend getting rid of -1s first, because -1s ruin your life because they always, pop up when you need exactly 3 damage to kill someone or whatever the damage is, and then it's -1 and the monster's left with 1 hit point. However, because fire and light are so important to the Redguard, I'm flipping the script on this one. First, go with add 1 +1 fire or light. Then replace 1 +1 with a +2 fire. Then replace 1 +1 with a +2 light. Then remove the -1s. Then do whatever you want. Okay, let's talk some item recommendations. 1, always take a minor stamina potion. You want to use Shield of the Desert twice in 1 rest cycle? You're going to need a stamina potion. Don't think of it as, extending your longevity. Although make sure you do use it on a turn when you have an odd amount of cards. So say if you have 7 cards, that's only 3 turns of longevity. But if you have a minor stam, that becomes 8 cards, right? Use 1 over twice. And then you get 4 turns of longevity. So make sure you use it on an odd turn. And then you want to take some armor, of course. If you are running shield spikes, you want that shield. You want, the armor that gives you shield and 1 and disadvantage. And then also, if you are getting attacked a lot, you can take that helmet, the iron helmet, that stops you from getting ×2s on you. And this will really help you with survivability if you're throwing yourself into packs of monsters, with shield and trying to, use the shield spikes build so that they don't get that ×2 and overwhelm your shields even more. I need your help. I need your support. It takes a lot of work to produce these videos, and I love it, but I also need your support. So make sure you're checking out my recommended products page for Gloomhaven, for Jaws of the Lion, for 3D printing, stuff like that. I'm adding to it all the time. It's really, really important. And also, if you could, share the message of this channel with your board game friends. You don't have to tell your grandma. That's not really going to help the YouTube algorithm, although it is appreciated. Thanks, Grandma, for watching. But tell your board game friends, and thank you so much for watching the video.